Welcome back, you guys. Tough loss for the Huskers at home. Took the Boilermakers to overtime, but ended up losing 80-77. What a valiant effort. A hell of a comeback effort in that second half. Rank Mass, Jamarcus Lawrence, Price Sanfort gave it their all. And it's tough because this was the last shot at a high-quality win for Nebraska left on our schedule, the last ranked team on our schedule. But let's get into it. So my score prediction, I predicted the Huskers to lose this one, 78-72. It was 80-77. I was 7 points off. Gosh dang it. As mad as I am about this loss, I'm probably equally as upset that I didn't get that damn score correct. And I'll tell you, that first half, I thought it was going to be a blowout for Purdue. I mean, after at halftime, I drove to the gym, turned on the radio, was listening to in my headphones to Kent Pavelka screaming his brains out. So I was listening to the whole game, the second half, cheering in the locker room at Lifetime, people looking at me like I'm freaking crazy. But I was damn close. I'm on point with these score predictions. Eventually, I'm gonna get one. I know it. All right. Game summary. So Purdue dominated the first half. It was 40-24 at halftime. It was 14-1 before the first media timeout. And it was in large part, I talked about him in the preview, Braden Smith. I told you guys he can distribute the ball at an unbelievably high rate. He's so good at controlling the pace and the tempo and the flow. He's so good at ball handling. He can find seams in between the defense, find guys open for alley-oops. He was incredible. Purdue also had tons of open shots in that first half. That was the most unusual thing for me. And it wasn't like it was a lack of effort defensively by the Huskers. It was just the distribution, the ball movement, the spacing, everything I talked about that Purdue does well, they were firing on all cylinders. Nebraska also was cold as hell in the first half. We couldn't hit anything. We couldn't throw a nickel in the ocean. Couldn't really get into a groove there in that first half. But second half, the Huskers finally started hitting shots. Jamarcus Lawrence, Price Sanfort, Rank Mast, who was the player of the game for us. We forced some turnovers in that second half. Eventually, we were able to force overtime. But at the end of the game, at the end of the day, or at the end of the night, rebounding was the killer. Rebounding was the issue. Purdue had tons of second chance opportunities. They had a significant rebounding advantage, especially on the offensive glass. And that, in turn, was the reason that they won this game. They took 17 more shots than Nebraska in this game. 17 more shots than Nebraska. They also finished with 8 steals. In my preview, I talked about Huskers' keys to the game. We've got to win the rebounding battle, and we've got to take care of the basketball. And we didn't do either of those things. We got dominated on the glass, and Purdue finished with 8 steals to our 4, and Purdue forced 14 turnovers by Nebraska to their 11. So they won the turnover battle. They won the rebounding battle. Because Nebraska outshot them from the field, from 3, and from the free throw line. And I'll show you guys the stats here in a second. Jamarcus Lawrence, I thought he was outstanding in that second half on offense, helping us force overtime, inching closer, inching away at that lead in the second half. I thought he was excellent, but he just had too many turnovers. And I'll get to that at the very end in my final thoughts. And then as good as Rank Mass played, I'm very happy with him. I know I've been hard on him, during that 4-game stretch, but he was excellent again. No turnovers, finished with 18. He was our leading scorer, leading rebounder, leading assist guy. But if he hits that free throw at the end to get that to finish that 3-point play, we win the game, and overtime never happens. But I'm not going to put this loss on him. It was a hard-fought, fair and square win for Purdue. Let's look at the box score. So you see, I highlighted where Nebraska had the advantage. So field goal percentage, we shot 44%. Purdue shot 37%. So we shot better from the field. We shot better from three-point. 38% from three-point for Nebraska, 28% for Purdue. Look how many threes Purdue shot. 46 three-pointers to Nebraska's 32. So like I talked about, one of Purdue's weaknesses, they can get three-point reliant at times. They can go cold. They weren't hitting them at a high rate in this game. So Nebraska outshot them, and then free throws. Nebraska outshot them from the line, 65%, 13 of 20. To Purdue's 55%, 11 of 20. That was a big surprise for me. That really helped Nebraska stay in the game late. But then I circled in red the big issues. So rebounds, look at this. 54 total rebounds for Purdue in this game to Nebraska's 37. That's ridiculous. I mean, Purdue came into this game middle of the pack in rebounding. I talked about it in the preview. And they absolutely annihilated us on the glass. And the big difference, if you look, offensive rebounds. They had 21 offensive rebounds to Nebraska's 6. Defensive rebounds was pretty even. 33 for Purdue, 31 for Nebraska. So offensive rebounds, we didn't box out well enough. Not nearly well enough to win this game. And it wasn't against, a team that rebounds at a very high rate, offensively especially. Assists was dead even at 21. You see Purdue forced 8 steals to our 4. And then total turnovers, Nebraska had 3 more turnovers, 14 to Purdue's 11. And that proved to be, the difference. Points off turnovers, Purdue had 19, Nebraska 16. We lost by 3. Points in the paint, shockingly, Nebraska had the advantage, 28 points in the paint to Purdue's 24. So again, Purdue's very reliant on the three-point shots. But again, you look at the red circles, the difference was rebounds and turnovers. That's why Purdue won this game. And that first half was it was such a horrible first half for us. It was just hard to come back against a very efficient offense like Purdue that has a ton of depth. You saw the depth. So many guys got in the game and contributed for them. Jack Benter, who was their 9th guy off the bench. Everybody for them, and it hurt us. So everything I kind of thought would be advantages for Purdue kind of turned out to be correct. Let's look at player stats. So for Purdue, my goodness, you're going to see right out of the gate, Trey Kaufman-Renn. I thought he'd be their leading rebounder, but I didn't think he'd have 19 rebounds. I predicted he'd have 9 and lead them in rebounds. He had 19, just 6 points, but he only took 5 shots. And then look at Oscar Clough, the South Dakota State transfer, highly touted recruit in the transfer portal. 12 points, 5 of 9 shooting, 14 rebounds. And 2 blocks. 10 of those 14 rebounds were offensive. That was huge for them. Now, a lot of the bounces were weird. The ball was hitting off the rim weird, at times. But you know what? At the end of the day, the stats don't lie. C.J. Koff had 11 points for them. Braden Smith, 13 points. He didn't score as many as I thought. I predicted he'd have 17, but he did have 10 assists, just like I predicted. He also had 8 rebounds. I mean, this kid is Sam Hoiberg on steroids. I mean, it's insane to watch him play. Fletcher Lawyer was their leading scorer with 18, but he didn't shoot at a high rate. 5 of 20 from the field, 4 of 17 from three-point. But look at their bench. Jack Benter, 7 points, 4 rebounds, 2 steals. Daniel Jacobson didn't do as much as I thought for being 7'4", 250 pounds. Jakari Harris, 7 points. But, guys, it was the rebounds. Trey Kaufman-Renn and Oscar Clough having 33 combined rebounds. And then adding 8 from Braden Smith. But you see the steals. Braden Smith had 2 steals. Jack Benter had 2 steals. 8 total steals for them in this game. So rebounds and steals. Let's look at Husker player stats. So Rank Mast was, in my opinion, the player of the game. 18 points, just 6 of 13 from the field, but he was 4 of 7 from downtown. He finally started to heat back up from 3. 6 rebounds, 7 assists, 0 turnovers. I thought he was excellent. If he could have nabbed, 3 more rebounds, it would have been nice, but it wouldn't have made a difference. Jamarcus Lawrence, 16 points, 6 of 9, 2 of 3 from downtown. He had 5 rebounds, 4 assists, but he had 4 turnovers, and that was costly. Sam Hoiberg, 8 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. He had another solid game. He was aggressive taking it to the rim. Bryce Sanford, 15 points. Didn't shoot as well tonight. Just 2 of 9 from 3. But he did have 5 rebounds. Guy I want to talk about up top. Burke Buchtengel, guys. People can defend him in the comments. That's fine. But look at his numbers tonight. Sure, he only took 4 shots. He needs to take more shots. That's what we need from him. He's got to be able to create more than 4 shots, especially when he's not doing enough on the rebounding, on the glass. He had 5 rebounds. Did have 2 steals in the second half. That was good, but it always plays with high effort. But he's got to be more of a factor. 5 points. He was way off on both of his threes. He was 1 of 4 from the free throw line. He just was not a factor once again. And I talked about my worries, in the last episode. We don't have enough depth inside. And we got away with it against, lesser competition and, beats, Michigan State and Illinois earlier in the year because we were hitting threes at a high rate. But when we have cold spells, we need Burke to step up. It can't just be rank masked, We've got to have Burke. We've got to have Braden Frager. We've got to have Jared Garcia. Leo Curtis needs to get healthy. I was told he sprained his ankle in practice. We've got to have more guys that can produce scoring and get shots up when our main guys aren't hitting threes. God, I'm disappointed in Burke, man. Braden Frager also 4 turnovers. He had an off night, but I'm not going to grill him too much. He's been a great bench player this season. Against Rutgers, he had 20 points. So I'm not going to beat him up too much. But the turnovers, Jamarcus Lawrence, you can't do that, man. He's been turning it over too much. He's been kind of a spaz with the ball, as good as he's been on the offensive end. But my biggest concern is Burke Buchtengel. We got to get Leo Curtis healthy. Players of the game. So I'm going to give it to 2 players for Purdue. Braden Smith and Oscar Clough. Braden Smith, like I told you guys, outstanding at distributing the basketball all game. He controlled the tempo. He was the main reason they dominated that first half. I mean, it was like he was getting every assist, finding people left and right. He's unbelievable. He's the type of cold-blooded killer you want on your team in March. And Oscar Clough, who was just incredible in this game. Right around his season average for points, finished with 12 points, but he had 2 blocks and he had 14 rebounds. I mean, again, 14 rebounds for Clough. It's just ridiculous. And then I can't forget about Trey Kaufman-Renn. This dude, I predicted he'd have 9 rebounds to lead them in that category. He finished with 19. I mean, even though he didn't produce a lot on the scoring and scoring points, he was a humongous advantage for them nabbing rebounds. My God. I predicted Braden Smith would have 10 assists to lead them. I was wrong on their scoring leader. I thought it'd be Smith. It was Fletcher Lawyer. Husker player of the game, it's got to be Rank Mast. Outstanding effort. He hit threes at a high rate. He worked his best to nab rebounds, especially the one at the end of the game where if he hits the free throw, we would have won it. Wouldn't have gone to overtime. I mean, that was unbelievable. I had to watch it again because I was listening on the radio. I don't know how he was able to get that rebound and put it back up, but he did not do anything to hurt us in this game. You also see he had no turnovers and 7 assists. Are you kidding me? So it goes to Rank Mast. I'm glad to see he's back to his old self. We need him to be. I predicted Sanford would lead us in scoring. It was Mast. I predicted Buchton Gel would lead us in rebounds. It was Mast. And I predicted Hoiberg would lead us in assists. It was Mast. And I also thought Hoiberg would lead us in steals. It was actually Buchton Gel with 2 steals, which was about all the good he did tonight. So my score prediction was not far off, but I got majority of my stat predictions incorrect. But hey, it's fun doing that either way. Hopefully you guys enjoy that. So my final thoughts before I sign off, you guys. My worries on us not having enough depth at forward and center. I talked about it last episode in the preview for this game. It's the main reason I thought we'd lose, and it was exactly the reason we lost. But it's proving to be legitimate, all right? And I'm not being, negative. First off, let me say I'm sick and tired of the moral victory crap. I've had too many decades of disappointment in Husker football and basketball to give a crap. I'll give them the moral victory, against Michigan, or, I'll give them that one, but getting beat, their asses kicked by Illinois, and this game, even though I thought it'd be a blowout, but we came back at the end, had a chance to win, and let it slip through our fingers. I'm not gonna just be okay with that. That's the mediocre programs are okay with that. Okay, we've got to change that mindset as Husker fans. So, yes, this has been the best basketball season ever in Nebraska history. It's been fun as hell to watch. Every game is interesting and edge of your seat, but we have issues depth-wise. Our forward and center. Okay, Jared Garcia, you saw he barely played a factor tonight. 2 points. He barely made that layup. He just can't score. He's not a good enough rebounder. He can't hold up in the Big Ten Conference. Leo Curtis, hopefully he can get healthy again, because his size would have helped us in this game, I think, even though he's raw and just a freshman. Esigian's hurt. He wouldn't help us in terms of rebounds, I don't think. So we've got, for next season, we've got to add some depth and size on this team. Because, I know Burke will be back, but he's just not a good enough scorer. He's an energy guy off the bench. We need somebody like a Rank Mast, and some guys that can come off the bench and score, and contribute at a high rate to help us win games, So, all 3 of our losses have come to physical, big, long teams that rebound at a high level. And Purdue was, of all 3 of those losses, Purdue is the worst rebounding team of all of them. But they still have size. I talked about it in the preview. Big teams with a lot of depth. Teams that don't just play 8 guys, they play 9, 10 guys. They're going to have a huge advantage if Nebraska has cold spells, which we've seen, the last 4 games, Nebraska has gone cold at times. And that's, when these teams are able to get us. Because they're aggressive attacking the rim. They feed the ball inside. They get to the free throw line at a high rate, and it hurts us. Husker rebounding, I've talked about it all season. It's been a problem, but especially against big, physical, elite teams with more depth, and that's obvious, of course, right? But we were able to find ways to come away with victories earlier this season against Michigan State, against Illinois, teams that did have the advantage in rebounding and size. But nonetheless, it's a problem. Rebounding has been a problem all season. We don't have enough depth inside, and we don't have a ton of size. We don't. We've got to figure out a way to get better at rebounding quick. If we want to make a run in March, it's got to get better. Tonight, we had 8 combined turnovers between Jamarcus Lawrence and Braden Frager, 4 for each of them. That was a humongous difference in this game. We lost by 3, and you look at the points off turnovers, it was a 3-point advantage for Purdue. So that was, that could have been that's the difference. It's not so much Frager because, he hasn't done it as much, but J. Law, he's been hitting threes. He's been scoring. He's been more aggressive lately. He's been having his best season offensively. He's got to take care of the basketball at home. You can do that shit on the road. You can do that shit at Purdue. at Wisconsin, at Illinois, at Michigan State, at Michigan. But don't do that shit at Pinnacle Bank Arena. And J-Law's 4 turnovers really were costly. And it's not just tonight. He's done it not a ton, but too much lately. He's got to slow down and get under control. If he wants to man the offense for us, he's got to stop turning it over. Other thought, Nebraska's defense hasn't been as elite the last 4 games, and I want some help from you guys in the comments. Since the Michigan loss, my thoughts are I think teams have figured out our weak spot. We have a lack of depth and size inside. And when we go cold like we were in the first half tonight, or, against Michigan, Illinois, we had cold spells, we're in trouble because what these teams have done since the Michigan loss is they're taking it to the rim. They're aggressive, getting to the free throw line. Most teams, except for Rutgers, had, the last 5 games, they've all had advantages with more free throw shots. So, hey, Nebraska eventually is going to go cold. They don't have enough scoring options inside. They're weak at rebounding. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to take the ball to the rim. We're going to feed the ball inside, and we're going to get to the free throw line and dominate the glass. And against the most elite teams, we've lost. That's been the difference. So let me know. Is it, you guys agree with me? Because the 3 losses we've taken, that's what those teams have done. They've been aggressive. They've gotten to the free throw line at a high rate, and they've out-rebounded us. But all in all, I think our defense has not looked the same the last 5 games, even against Rutgers. Guys are getting more open looks. And I don't think it's an effort thing. I think it's just schematically they found something on film. But Purdue, I know they're the best in the country, probably at spacing and distributing the basketball and movement in their offense. But I just feel like Nebraska's defense has been off a little bit the last 5 games. So let me know if you guys know something I don't. But that's, that worries me a bit. Last final thought, and I kind of just talked about it. Teams are getting to the free throw line at high rates. This goes along with what I said. The no-middle defense has been our strength, our backbone, this whole season. And I just feel like teams since that Michigan game, they saw it. Or maybe it was the Illinois game, they saw that weakness, that chink in our armor, and everybody has been doing that to us. They're aggressive, taking the ball to the rim, trying to find looks inside, getting to the free throw line, and it's been working, That's been something. Nebraska's had a lot of fouls the last 5 games. That's why we lost to Michigan. It's one of the big reasons we lost tonight, but, let me know what you guys think. These are just my final thoughts. I'm just thinking out loud. But my worries and fears on us not having enough depth inside is coming to fruition. Rebounding is becoming more of a problem as we play better and better teams. Turnovers got to stop from J-Law. Our defense, just on-ball pressure and forcing tough shots it just hasn't been the same lately. And teams seem to be getting to the free throw line way too easy. So, all right, next game for the Huskers this Saturday, back at home against Northwestern. We've already beaten the hell out of them once, but again, we've learned you can't take anyone lightly, and especially since Nebraska has no ranked teams left on the schedule, we can't have close wins. We've got to play at our best, try to blow out the rest of these teams. I know Iowa will be a tough game. USC, UCLA on the road will be tough, but we've got to take care of business against these bottom feeders. We've got Northwestern, Penn State, Maryland. Those games we should win easy and handedly. And then we've got Iowa twice, once on the road, once at home, and then USC, at UCLA. So we've got to win Northwestern easy. We've got to win Penn State easy. We've got to win Maryland easy. With style, we got to win with style points. I really think that's important because, again, we've got no ranked teams left on the schedule. That's the biggest dagger in the chest for me about this loss tonight is that was our last chance in the regular season at a high, top-notch quality win. That could have locked us into a 2 seed. And now it's going to be tough just because of our remaining schedule. But Anyway, thanks everybody for tuning in. That's all I've got tonight. Tough loss for the Huskers, but hey, it's still been a badass season. Exciting as ever. That comeback was unbelievable. I still can't believe we did it against a Purdue team like that. So credit for the valiant effort, but it's a tough loss either way. We've got to go undefeated, the rest of our games this season. We got to win out, and we got to win with style points. Remember, like, subscribe, you guys. If you enjoy my content, please. It helps out the channel. I've really had a lot of fun and, enjoyment producing these different videos for you guys each week. So please do me a favor and like and subscribe and leave comments. I appreciate everyone leaving comments, engaging with me. It's fun to see, how many Cornhusker fans are out there. So, again, thanks for tuning in. Tough loss tonight, but hey, go Big Red, baby. You know it, like always. See you guys.